What may owners do with their property? We used the theory of private and public goods to answer the question, what can be privately owned? Closely related to the theory of public goods is the theory of externalities, which we discussed in chapter 2. Now we return to that theory in order to answer the question, what may owners do with their property? Legislation imposes many restrictions on what a person may do with his or her property. But at common law, there are relatively few restrictions, with the general rule being that any use is allowed that does not interfere with other people's property or other rights. Indeed, we could say that common law approximates a legal system of maximum liberty, which allows owners to do anything with their property that does not interfere with others people's property or other rights. The restriction of non interference finds justification in the economic concept of external cost. Recall that external costs are those costs involuntarily imposed on one person by another. Because market transactions are voluntary, externalities are outside the market system of exchange, hence their name. For example, a factory that emits thick, cloying smoke into a residential neighborhood is generating an externality. In example 3, at the beginning of this chapter, the stench from the cattle feedlot is an externality that interferes with Foster's enjoyment of her house. In example 4, the development of Blog's wetlands will interfere with the town's enjoyment of its rivers and streams. Notice that these types of interference are like a public good in that they affect many property owners. There is, as it were, no rivalry or exclusion from smelling the feedlot's stench among Foster and her neighbors. These forms of interference are thus like a public good, except they are bad rather than good. We have already explained why markets uh, cannot arise to simply to supply public goods efficiently. Restating the sentence, we have already explained why markets cannot arise to supply public goods efficiently. The same set of considerations explains why private bargaining cannot solve the problem of externalities, or as we called them in a previous section, public bads. To illustrate, suppose that Foster had enough money to pay the feedlot to stop emitting its stench. If she made this private deal with the feedlot, all of her neighbors would also benefit, but without having to pay for that benefit. This fact suggests that Foster will not pay the feedlot to stop its malodorous activities. Malodorous activities. More generally, the free rider problem prevents private bargaining solutions to the problem of externalities or public bads. Some form of legal intervention is called for. One possibility is a rule forbidding involuntary invasion, supported by provisions for remedies if that invasion takes place. We have already noted how bargaining theory can help to design the form that remedy should take, namely the payment of compensatory money damages. An alternative remedy that we will consider in the following chapter is regulation of the public bad or external cost generating activity by an administrative agency. By contrast, private bads may be self correcting through private agreements. Recall the rancher farmer example, so that there may be no need for an intrusive legal solution. Instead, the courts can stand prepared to issue an injunction in the confident expectation that they will seldom be required to do so.